Good evening. I'm going to open the February 25th meeting of the Planning Board, and we will start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item on our agenda is a public hearing for Gary and Heather Marshall of Newton for a conditional use permit for an accessory apartment at 7 Wentworth Drive. Property is referenced as Tax Map 13, Block 4, Lot 3. Would you like to come up and explain what you would like to do, please? Oh, thank you. And I'm going to appoint Mr. Zielinski as a voting member in Mr. Holland's place. Thank you.
Okay, so I've owned the property for about a month and a half, and come to find out not much in the house is a legitimate situation. This is an existing apartment that's been existing for at least 8 years and been occupied by a tenant for the last 8 years. I'm just trying to make it a legal situation.
And this is the area over to the left
Yes.
of the house.
The original part of the house. The house was approved in 2002 for an accessory apartment above the garage, which they updated the septic system, and they started the apartment but never wound up getting finished or signed off on. That is now the master bedroom, and somehow the original part became the accessory apartment.
Over here, on the left.
Above the garage was the original approved accessory apartment.
Okay, we don't, all right.
So there was an approved apartment for the house,
Yes.
but it wasn't constructed where, and an apartment was constructed, it just wasn't constructed where the approval was for.
I believe the owners that went in 2002 attempted to finish it, but they ran out of money. And then the previous owners since then obviously made some changes without permits or any records, so.
I was going to say, we don't have anything on the books, the fact that any apartment was ever approved there.
They have the permits pulled to build the apartment. They have the septic system was updated to a six-bedroom septic system. They do have the permits for that downstairs. That's about all the information they have on it. It was never got a final inspection on it, and I don't think the permit was ever closed out. The septic system was finalized and signed off and ready for use, but that's about all I could.
Because what, this approval for construction that you provided with your packet?
That is for the accessory apartment or the permits I just pulled? I just pulled all the permits for the house.
This is dated 2001.
Right.
Yes, that was the original paperwork that was downstairs that we found.
Because this is approval for construction of a 4-bedroom system, but this particular, this is expired.
Yep.
They only are good for 2 years.
Okay.
All right, so have you,
I don't understand what the problem with the septic system is.
Well, that's what he's saying. They did the construction back in 2002, but never finished or got it inspected.
no, this is only an approval for construction,
Of
not
what?
an approval for operation.
They had some operation downstairs. It was a sign-off and approval for operation. I might even have a picture of it in my phone.
Right, but that's the issue we've been having in town anyway. People build and then,
Right, I understand that, I understand that. Okay, so, right now, the only apartment at this house is over in the left, that you're trying to make it a legal apartment.
Yes.
There's nothing over the garage,
That is
that
the master
two-story.
bedroom.
I'm sorry,
That is the master bedroom.
that's the master bedroom, and there's a garage on the first floor, which
No longer a garage.
you're converting it to a family room, right? Okay,
The plans also show the house is originally a 4-bedroom house, not including the accessory apartment. It is only a 3-bedroom house. The 4th bedroom would be coming from the accessory apartment. So I'm still under the 4 bedrooms regardless. The septic tank is designed for up to 8 bedrooms though, 2,000 gallon septic system.
So this thing says 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, I don't know what they did back then. I do have some literature on sizing of septic tanks and how many bedrooms and people you're allowed to have. Either way, the house is still under a 4-bedroom, is still a 4-bedroom house.
Okay. So I see from your sketch here of your area that, now which one of these sides is the front of the building where the windows?
There's this,
No, it's going to be,
there, right.
okay, so this is the windows. All right, so you have a door going out on the side.
And that's the door to the rest of the house.
Oh, I have the wrong way then.
Right, yeah.
Door on both sides of that house, so again, one goes into my side.
One goes into the house and the other one goes outside. Okay.
My question about that is, on the assessor's diagram,
Yep.
it shows an entryway where you're not showing any doors.
I have to take a look at it.
Yeah. So, what is this thing? Because this is where the apartment is, right? There's a door here and a door to the outside.
There is a door here, that's the main door of the house. This is the front door. This is the second egress door, and there's 3 doors in the apartment.
Who should be, 'cause it sits this way,
Oh, yeah,
right?
they got cut out of the picture. It's right here, it got cut out of that wall.
So there's a door
There's a door right here.
here.
Yes, that's the main door, front door of the house. The original door of the house.
So where's the front door for the main part of the house now?
It is now from the garage. The new family room is the main entrance to get into the main part of the house.
Where this door is, where the garage door was.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So you're well within the amount of square feet, and where would you have your tenants park? Where do they park here? Because there's supposed to be 2 spaces for the tenants.
It's actually 4.
Okay.
That's also existing prior to owning the property.
So this is the
Yeah.
street here?
Okay.
So what he's got,
Keep this for the file.
Of course.
Okay. Have any other questions from the board?
Just before we approve it, back in last March, the town passed an ordinance that all home sales and rentals, once they change hands, get a life safety code inspection. So you would need to schedule that.
Talking about the smoke permit and,
Correct.
yeah,
So we don't believe we saw this come through the fire department. So if you can schedule that with them, they'll come out, just do a life safety inspection and probably answer any more questions as far as exit ways, doorways, or whatnot.
Yep.
Okay. That's
We
the
can
only
make
thing.
that as one of the conditions.
Yeah.
Life safety inspection.
Like within a week, you know, you don't have to call tomorrow.
I'll
You
do it
actually come
first thing in
down.
the morning.
Huh?
I'll schedule it first thing in the morning.
Yeah, you'd actually have to come fill out a permit. Are you working tomorrow?
Yeah.
So you can see Mr. Zelinski, he's the captain. He'll give you the permit.
Okay.
Everything else looks good?
Well, except we will need to have the updated septic information before this can be approved. We need to have it like in the file.
Wouldn't everyone have that downstairs, no? I don't know if he keeps copies of it.
I don't know what's down there, we would have to check, so that would have to be one of the conditions of approval too, that we
Do you know the company who
locate
did
that updated septic system that you say will support that many, because all we have is,
You have it for a four-bedroom, it is a four-bedroom house with the accessory apartment though. I'm not adding a fifth bedroom. The house is originally, without the apartment, is a three-bedroom house. For some reason, you guys have it down as a four. There's only three bedrooms in the entire house.
no, actually, the property card says 3 bedrooms.
Well, the documents I have say four.
Yeah, the property card that that I just printed off says 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Again, I'm just trying to make,
No, I understand that,
I've
I'm
had the
just saying,
property
that's
for
why
6
we're gonna,
weeks, so.
that's why we need to have the paperwork for the updated septic. If you say that that's been approved, and if it's in, or if, we'll have to double check with the health inspector on that.
You have an approval for construction, that's what this is.
But that approval for construction is expired. They're only good for 2 years.
Right, I'm assuming that it got
I don't know.
constructed,
But it
and
says
then
4
there's
bedrooms
a,
on it.
well, the system was a 4-bedroom.
Yeah.
So you
And it's a
may even better
4-bedroom
go
house.
by this same permit number and talk to DES if they don't have it downstairs.
I might even have a copy of it on my phone.
Oh, so maybe, Dennis, do you do that? Septic systems? 'Cause
I don't
your name-
believe so.
Your name's on here.
Maybe I did.
No, I was just asking.
Last year. When was
Okay.
that? 2002?
Yeah.
2001.
2001.
Can't remember.
You can't.
It's been a lot that I've done between now and then.
All right.
I mean, we could check into that anyway. I
Right,
mean,
that could be one of the conditions.
I believe June 25th, 2003, there's a stamp on here from this selectman. I don't know if this is the right one. It's probably gonna turn on you.
Well, copy went to the Board of Selectmen, and then the applicant, and then it went to Mr. Quintel.
This says approval for operation 825 gallons a day, which is more than enough.
More than enough.
Yeah,
This is from your files
you
downstairs.
can show them that if you want.
Oh, yeah. That's the...
It might turn on you.
No, no, we're just trying to see where it says 4-bedroom.
Doesn't say the 4 bedrooms, it just says the gallons.
Okay,
Okay.
The gallons there, right?
Yeah, because the permit says 4 bedrooms, 600 gallons.
Right, but this
Now, this
says
one says 825.
yeah, exactly, see, 825 gallons a day, and it's approval
Right.
for operation.
Right.
okay, okay,
Should we get a copy of that for our, put in the file?
yes.
We need
That's
a,
downstairs, we'll get it.
oh, we have it downstairs?
Yeah, because I think that's where he got it from.
Downstairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, so I'll get that put into the file. All right. We need a motion to take jurisdiction so that then we can vote on this.
Move that we take jurisdiction?
Thank you.
Oh, I should have seconded it. I'm sorry.
And Mr. White seconded. Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. And I have a motion for approval with some
Conditions.
conditions?
Only condition is the life safety inspection.
So I'll make a motion to allow the expansion at 7 Wentworth Drive with the only exception would be the life safety code inspection.
Okay,
Second.
okay, so we have Mr. Foote and Mr. White. All those in favor?
All right.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You need these back?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Close that public hearing. Oh, fine. 7:16. Remember to do the time. Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing for Christina, the continued public hearing for Christina Curo and Mark Rochan of Newton for a 4-lot subdivision at 36 Thornell Road. Property is referenced as tax map 6, block 8, lot 7-2. Mr. Quintel, you would like to present?
Do what I can do. Is this okay here?
Yes.
So, at our last meeting, we discussed this plan, and the subdivision proposing 4 lots. There'll be 3 buildable lots. This one here on the northerly part of the lot, then there'll be 2 other smaller lots here, and then there's remaining land of 41 acres. So just to summarize that, the lot on the northerly side was originally a lot that I had done a subdivision for Forrest Reynolds, which was originally part of his property. And we had done 2 lots here for him, and one of them sold, the other one did not. Since that time, that lot was merged with this land that used to be Baker property. And at this point in time, what the owners would like to do is recreate that lot as a buildable lot, as over 3 acres. And these 2 lots, which are 78,000 square foot lots. We did the perimeter survey, which we've done in the past, and we did a topographic plan. And the only change that I've done to these first 2 sheets is to add the state subdivision approval number on the top section of the plan right here, because we had to send this plan into the state to get state subdivision approval, and that state subdivision approval is for these 3 buildable lots here, because any lot that's over 5 acres, you don't need state subdivision approval. So this lot here, which has frontage here and the 40 acres, is a buildable lot, but it doesn't need state subdivision approval to consider it a buildable lot. But we've done test pits on that lot, show a proposed well location, if it ever does get a possibility of a building site in the future, but for right now, it's only these 3 lots that'll be buildable. So on those 2 sheets, that's the only change, was the adding of the state subdivision approval. On those 2 sheets, which are the 2 sheets that will be recorded. The 3rd sheet, which is S1, is a site plan, and that shows the topographic lines of existing conditions. It also shows the proposed conditions, shows where the typical house could be built, shows where a typical well can be placed on each of the lots, shows the grading for the driveway, and an area for a septic system, which is, the requirement is to show 4,000 square feet where a septic system can go. And we've done test pits in those areas and provided information to the town for that. And these 2 lots will have a common driveway that access and split off into the 2 lots. And the northerly lot will have its own driveway and be graded off. Now, since that, just to repeat what I said last meeting, is since that driveway on this northerly lot is greater than 150 feet from the street, the NFPA requirements are that you have to have an access road that's a travel way that's at least 20 feet wide of a stable base. So that gravel road driveway is at least 20 feet wide, and I've got it graded accordingly. And also, the requirement is to make a turnaround for any emergency vehicle at the house area, so that any emergency vehicles can get up and turn around and get back out. And I reviewed that with the fire chief and showed him that plan, and I don't know if you got a chance to see it either, but maybe, certainly that's what the NFPA requirements are. So that's what this sheet shows. It does show also some drainage in the street, between at the driveway and the street, which I'll talk about next, because you can't see it that well on this sheet, but on the next sheet, which is this S2 sheet, which is the sheet that I have prepared for a site distance plan, and it shows how anybody coming out of the driveway for that common driveway would have to be able to see in each direction, 350 feet in each direction, clear sight, and in order to accomplish that, we have to cut the banking down a little bit on this side here, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But about the drainage, I met with the town engineer, Mike Vignali, and also Mike Pavero soon after our meeting here, and we had a thorough discussion about the drainage coming off the hill and how their game plan is to rebuild Thornell Road, and they're working on a design for interceptor drain all along that road, all the way down the hill. And they asked me on this situation here to put in a catch basin on the uphill side of that driveway in the swale to capture any water that comes down the hill into the catch basin, and then put a culvert under the driveway and outlet that culvert further down the swale. Their game plan is that when they do, if this gets done first, when they do their drainage work and their subsurface drain from the top of the hill all the way down there, then all they'll have to do is tie into that catch basin, and that driveway will already have the pipe underneath it, and they'll pick up with their drainage beyond, and then continue all the way down beyond until it gets down to the bottom of the slope, where, actually it's gonna go to the next catch basin. There's another catch basin just beyond that goes across the road. So it would capture any water coming off the hill, going down that side of the road, and discharge it across the street, similar to what it does now, except for more of it's gonna be underground instead of on the surface. And that way there, it'll be like crushed stone and pipe, 3 or 4 feet deep into the ground, so that it'll pick up the water before it gets into and under the road, because that's what's really causing the breaking up of the pavement is the water that's coming off and going underneath into the gravel that's underneath the road. So that's their game plan, and that's what they asked me to do. So you can see the notes here about the catch basin and the detail up here for the catch basin. And then also there's a trench detail on the lower left-hand side that shows how the pipe is going to be put into the ground, the culvert pipe under the driveway, and crushed stone around it to drain the water. So that kind of the changes I did on that sheet, which kind of addresses the drainage problem there. The next sheet is the driveway profile, S3 sheet, which gives a little more detail on the driveway that goes up to that northerly lot. And again, I have the profile that shows the slope of the driveway to be no more than 10%. And the only addition that I did to this was to show a cross-section of the driveway that shows 12 feet of pavement and 20 feet wide of gravel. And that's what the requirement would be for the fire apparatus and emergency vehicles, ambulance or whatever, to get up the hill to that buildable lot. And so, like I said, the only change to that sheet was this cross-section that clarifies a little bit better what the intent is for that driveway. The last sheet is a sheet that I added, and since our last meeting, we had a site walk, and some of you people were there from the planning board. We also had the road agent there, Mike Pavero, and we had a representative from the Conservation Commission, Alicia Geelan, was there. And we got into a discussion about the site distance for this common driveway, and I had explained about how the bank was going to be cut down to accomplish that site line of sight. And right now, it slopes off, and it's pretty well vegetated with some small hemlocks and pine saplings that are there. And so, and then it drops off into the ditch line. So what the intent is to start basically at the property line that comes across here and cut that grade down to the swale as a straight plane, like it shows up in this cross-section. And that way there, we'd be able to have, this is where the line of sight is. There's an eyeball right there that I drew that shows where the line of sight will be. And we need to have that clear line of sight, and there can be no vegetation that grows between there and the street. So in talking to Alicia Geelan about how to revegetate that slope, it's very important to replace trees as much as possible, but we can't replace trees on the lower part of the slope, but we will replace the trees on the upper part of the slope with red maple, white birch, and white pine, and hemlock trees up in this area. As you can see, we're planting them on the higher side of that slope that's going to be cut and reestablish vegetation, tree vegetation on that slope. And on the lower part of the slope, where the line of sight will need to be, is going to be planted with some New England Erosion Control mix seed for getting grass cover there, and also some small shrubs, which recommended were to be creeping junipers, sweet fern, and shrubbery cinnaphole, whatever it is. I don't know much about that stuff, but it's
Cinquefoil.
some sort of a flowering shrub. Maybe you can help me with that, but it's some sort of a flowering,
Right.
low-growing shrub that doesn't grow very high, and hopefully that will maintain that lower and stabilize that slope, and not have it bleed out or anything like that. So it would be the type of thing that I think that in working with Alicia on that, it was this type of a situation would be acceptable to them. I did send her a copy of this. She sent me an email back that said that this looks good to her, and she'd transfer that to the Conservation Commission, so. and we
Mr.
can
Quintel, excuse me, could you give a copy of the plan to, oh, you have one, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had it, all
I
right,
also put a full-size copy in the
Okay.
back to look
Thank you.
at too, and there's extra copies here, obviously, also. So, as a result of our last meeting, there was concern about the drainage, which I think that we've tried to address on here, and in talking to the town engineer and the town road agent. I sent plans to the town engineer, and we did get an email back from him saying that he was satisfied with what we've drawn up based on what he asked us to do. Our site walk, although it was cold and we couldn't really walk around too much around there because of the snow and whatnot, we did see a lot of what was necessary to look at, and discussing this slope issue, I think, is something that I've tried to address as best we can. So there are a couple other things that need to be done that could be conditions. One is set the bounds. We've got control points set onto the site, so that there are bounds that need to be set for the corner markers and the bend points. These bend points here, so there's the two front bounds, these bend points here, and then the 3 points along the back. These other points are drill holes, and so we need to get the bounds set. We need to get the Mylar for the first 2 sheets. And the only other thing that we talked about at the last meeting, and I know you're going to probably want to talk about it some more tonight, is a note on the plan about a road bond for to be in place for any possible damages during construction of these dwellings. And so that's a bond that would be in place prior to issuing a building permit.
right.
And so that is certainly a note that I can add to the plan. I just would want to work with you as far as how that wording should be placed on the plan, but I certainly can do that.
Okay.
And so, again, that's bounds to be set, Mylar, and a note on the plan, and anything else we come up with tonight. And I
Okay.
think that summarizes getting us from the last meeting to where we are tonight, and I guess I can answer any questions from the board.
And I guess you sent this to Jen Rowden too, and she has
Yes.
she has no additional comments.
Exactly, the same plans that I sent.
Right.
You said, when talking about S2, you said that, if the drainage for the driveway is constructed before the improvements to the road are made, they would then attach them to what you've built. What happens if it's the other way around? If this gets delayed,
If this
in the-
gets delayed,
in the-
here's what happens. They will put their drainage down through there. So they'll have a pipe in the ground, crushed stone around it, and it'll be a culvert pipe that goes under the ground. What we would do then is, I don't believe they'd put in the catch basin there, but if they did, that'd be great. But I don't suppose that they would. But if it's not there, we dig down, we cut the pipe, and we put the catch basin in, so that the culvert, they'll pick up the water from the swale so the water doesn't go over the driveway, okay? And so we capture that water coming down the swale, put it down into the ground and get it underneath the driveway. So it's just a matter of digging, cutting the pipe, and putting in the catch basin at that time.
Okay, so either you put it in first and the town connects to what you've already put in, or if the town goes first, then you'll connect to what's...
But that's a great question, but we talked about that too, because that was the question that I had, as to when they are gonna do their work. And Mike Pravero said this year, because it was supposed to be done last year. But he said this year he was gonna do that. So I said, well, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna be working on this fairly soon, but again, I don't know exactly when, but that's a good question. We certainly can work together on that. There was also talk from Mike Pravero about the possibility of any other drainage pipes that come off the driveway area that go under the driveway up onto the property, and any drain pipes from the roof drains or anything being tied into the street drainage. I didn't really like that idea, because if the street drainage ever gets plugged up for some reason, then it backs up into the house. I don't think the town would want to be involved in something like that. So I didn't put that on my plan, but it was a comment that was made, but I don't believe that that's the direction we're going to go.
So the house, the roof drains would just become surface water and be
Surface
picked
water,
up
just like-
as surface water.
Exactly, but I've shown riprap coming out here, and so if any other drain pipes that would come off would go into a riprap swale. If we could do subsurface drainage, like a dry well, that would be great, but the water table is not very deep in that type of soil. So if you were to dig a hole that was 4 or 5 feet deep for a dry well, most of the time it'll be 3/4 to full of water anyways from groundwater. So you really wouldn't be able to put something into the ground from a roof drain. The best thing to do is to put it on the surface, back onto the surface, and feather it out into sheet flow instead of a channel flow situation, and get it to drain that way. And so that's why I show some riprap here, or we can tie any roof drains into any riprap swale, so it just kind of feathers its way down there into the swale, which you'll have crushed stone, and then down into the drain pipe.
Do you know where the well is for the lot, between those two lots?
Not sure exactly. It looks like, I know the septic system is on the far end of the house. I think it's close to the driveway. I think the owners, no, it's close to the driveway as you go up on the right-hand side, I believe.
Close to the driveway, but away from
Right, it
your lot?
obviously had to be, it was supposed to be placed, away from these lots. But she's got a copy of the plan anyway, so.
This is mine here. This is the well. There's Thornell.
Just to know.
It's in
So-
front
so-
of the
so-
house.
Where's your driveway?
My driveway's right here.
Okay, so based on here, what you're talking about is your
My
well.
driveway is here.
Yeah, so your well is sort of like here,
Right here. Hi.
but it's, and you've got 75 feet before the
Yes.
wall. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I think I drew that plan, so I got a good idea that, yeah, I got an idea with stuff. But it's these type of houses that we're proposing are very similar to that one that was created, where it's a long, steep driveway, the area was cleared and revegetated and fairly stable now, I think, so.
Could you add the well radius for
On the
that,
abutter's property?
for their property?
I can certainly, if they let me go onto your property and measure it. I have the proposed well based on the plan. I don't have the existing well, but I can, if you don't mind, I can go and measure it. I certainly can do that.
Okay, that'd be good. It'd be good to have it on this plan then.
No, this erosion, you know, Mike's gonna put in a new road and put down the drainage and stuff, but this lot here, you know, Theodore Brown owns, if you drove by there the past couple of weeks, you'd think you were in the mountains. Is that gonna have a drainage put there too, or are we only building the road to allow these 4 houses to be
No,
built?
the road, the drainage for the road is gonna take place from the top of the hill in both directions, all the way to 108 and all the way down toward the Forest Reynolds Farm. And so it's to capture the water that's coming down the hill, subsurface water, and it bleeds into the gravel. It's my understanding that when that road was built, there was plenty of gravel there. But any water that comes down, it goes into and it soaks into, and Chester Beers built the road, and he'll tell you that the gravel's there. It's just that it gets saturated with water, and then frost action breaks up the road. So the intent is here, and Mike Vignali is working on a design to show a subsurface drain all the way down and get it deep enough to intercept that water, the groundwater, so it doesn't get into the gravel. Okay, that's the intent of what they're gonna do.
Right, okay.
And we're just doing the section that's right in front of these lots.
Right. Anybody else on the board have anything?
Trish, you have
No, I
any?
know. That's what I'm going to call on her. Conservation, would you like to come up and say something, please?
Good evening, Tricia McCarthy, Conservation and Stewardship Committee. So Dennis, I think, answered most of my questions. Conservation was curious about some kind of a gutter system and a roof runoff because we are concerned about the road and protecting. The Stewardship Committee's charge is to protect Hidden Acres, which is Forrest Reynolds' old property, now Ed and Bev Batchelder. And one of the concerns, one of our purposes in the easement language is that we have to make sure nothing detrimental, whether it's flood, water conservation, water quality, and erosion control affects the property. So Dennis he went back and forth with us about erosion control, native mix, the hemlock, the red maple, the river birch. For the high part of the lots, we have concerns. We want to make sure that the lower part of the lots also have the creeping junipers, the sweet ferns, something that's going to keep the absorbing water and prevent the erosion control or erosion of that property. Mr. Batchelder is probably going to mention he's concerned about his lower area if everything is coming down. And I think that's where this catch basin is. Is that near Hidden Acres? No, okay, that makes me feel better. So I think, although there is now, seems to be going to be more cutting than we originally thought, we held a public hearing last year when this was going to be done. We may have to hold another public hearing. If we do, it's going to be April 2nd. If there's going to be more cutting than what was told to us last year. So I'll have to talk to the road agent and ask him to reflag the trees that were done last year, but because this work never got done. We're gonna have to look at them again. Other than that, I think you've covered everything. We talked about maybe the roof, a gutter system and a roof system that could come down into some kind of a leach field or a dry well to keep it from coming down the road. But Dennis just explained that the water table is so high. I guess that's not doable. I don't know, how about a fire pond? Maybe we need a retention pond if this water is so high all the time. But I guess we're at a standstill. There's not much more we could do. Can't do a fire pond, could we?
No, not on this slope. But
Okay.
it's not much different than the other lots that are built there. So very similar in the sense that these lots would be built, they're a little bit closer to the street. So any runoff that goes there is gonna go into the street to begin with. And still, the top of the hill is way back here. So
Okay.
you're gonna have a lot of, by the time all of this runoff comes down here, this drainage is done and gone.
All right.
So when they build a house, certainly they'll take a look at this, the grading and grasses that are planted around the house.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
if there's any way possible, they can put some sort of a subsurface drain. I'm sure that they can try to do that as far as the, incorporating the roof runoff and foundation drains. But usually that gets taken into account with the building and the building inspector and
Right.
and when I get involved in doing a septic system design, I also take those things into consideration also. The driveways, the well, the septic, the contours, the grading, and how the grading works around the house, and any other drainage systems. Usually that's incorporated at the time of doing the septic plan. So, I'm not sure I'll be doing the septic design, but if I
Right.
do,
Okay.
I certainly would be cognizant of all of this information and concern, and make sure that we can address it as best we can.
Right. Is
Okay.
conservation going to, when you were talking about flagging trees, those are the trees that are going to be,
The cut within
that
our
are going
right
to
of
need to be
way.
removed?
Yes,
Right?
on the edge of the road, yes. Not up on the hill. That's not our jurisdiction.
No, and he's already shown that he's going to do a lot of replanting where he can.
Yes,
Planting of trees and then some erosion control stuff down lower. Okay.
definitely, yes.
Okay.
Now, you said you might be having another public hearing?
If, depending on tonight, if more work is going to be done than we were originally, we meaning conservation, was originally explained last year when we had our public hearing, then we may need to hold another one just to keep in line with the RSAs. But if there's no additional cutting that's gonna be done than what Mr. Pavero said last year, then we won't have to hold another hearing.
But we don't have to hold up making a decision, waiting for you to
No.
come back to us?
No, not at all. Thank you.
One quick question, just for my clarification, I guess the easement property,
Yes.
that is lot 6-8? That's
It's number 42 Thornell. It's at the base of the,
okay, so it's at the top of the,
That's way beyond. Yeah,
Okay.
Beyond, beyond this property.
what's the property just abutting this project at the top of the sheet?
Here,
Yeah,
that's at the bottom of the slope, you can see that's where the wetlands are,
uh-huh,
and that's part of the farm that this fellow owns.
okay.
yes.
That's the old Forest Reynolds property,
Have you,
easement property.
from the engineering, because I'm looking at, a lot of runoff naturally goes there in that direction from the topo, and then by putting in this long driveway and, say, more impervious surface,
Right.
have you got an estimate of how much more runoff is going
Well, what's gonna
onto the
happen,
abutting property?
what's gonna happen there is, right now, it all sheet flows down to it into the pond. So by putting this driveway in, we're going to create a swale on the uphill side.
Okay.
Okay, down through here. Now, that swale, and I show detail here, on this sheet for check dams. And what check dams are for is going down the slope, there'll be a riprap swale that goes down the driveway, and then there'll be these check dams that go in what that does is it slows the velocity of water down, so you don't have a slug of water heading down and causing erosion. These little check dams will be in place to keep the water going slow and therefore minimize erosion. So that water then comes down along this side of the road and eventually comes to the edge of this road here, with this driveway, which will have a culvert underneath, and then into like a riprap basin area, and then outlet into the low area that goes eventually into the wetlands. Where the driveway is and then the slope off of this here, it's all sheet flow off of that slope, and it's going to be a fairly steep slope, but it's going to be revegetated, and it's going to have, as the note says, apply jute mat, like
Right.
North American green, which is a type of woven mesh that sticks on, stapled onto the slope to minimize erosion until the grass gets growing. And then once the grass gets growing, eventually it'll revegetate into shrubs and eventually trees, back to similar to what it is now. Because right now it's a fairly steep slope, but in order to get this driveway the width that what we need for the emergency vehicles, we have to be able to add that material to the slope.
So the water that's going down the swale, where is it going to go?
Well, it goes through the swale, eventually down the edge of the road, and then it goes into like a riprap basin area that they typically put there, and then the culvert under the driveway, and then into the...
So there's a culvert under that driveway?
There will be.
Yeah.
Is the MS4, is that the new wetland standard? Am I getting that right?
Right?
Apply to the, and my question is, I used to always, when I was designing, it would be, we'd go with 100-year floods, 500-year floods, we'd kind of use different terminology.
Well, for a single family lot, we don't do a stormwater management plan. If it was a road, big subdivision with a road, then regulations require doing, stormwater calculations post-development and evaluate the runoff. Single family lots, variability involved in that, and small lot that doesn't really apply.
So how are you sizing the culvert?
Typical culverts are 18-inch. The culvert was designed for, was under this driveway here, 18 inch going underneath. And Mike and Valley said that's big enough, so.
Okay. Size of the culvert doesn't, I know you're the engineer with a stamp here. It's based on the watershed size and whether we're gonna do a 25-year
Well, I mean.
flood or a 100-year flood, which we know we're getting a lot
Not
more
much of a
extreme.
watershed there, to tell you the truth. This all sheets this way. This is, you can see this is the top of the hill, and all of this runoff goes this direction here. So we're only talking about what comes down here, there, and toward this direction. So it's really on this curved knoll area here. So if you're looking at a watershed, if you were analyzing this spot here, is not a big watershed, acre or less. So when you're looking at an acre or less, probably a 12-inch culvert would be good enough to handle that much flow. So I haven't done the analysis on that, but I think generally 10 or 20-year storm, 12-inch culvert would be enough. Talking to Mike Valley, he said 18-inch, so that's what was shown.
Okay. So when I see that, what I'm trying to pick out here is, I'm an old Yankee. It's like, I don't care what you do on your property, I just don't want it to come onto my property.
But we don't want to impact anybody either, besides enough.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is, is there going to be more discharge? It's one thing going to the road, which then we're all going to have to deal with that, and hopefully they're sizing it correctly. But then, if it's going on, that's why I was trying to figure out, is more going to the neighbor or less going to the neighbor with this driveway and the swale in your
Well, what we take a
estimate?
look at is the peak rate of runoff typically on the stormwater analysis. These small watersheds, again, in this area here, The watershed starts up in here. By the time this water goes through the wooded area and gets here, whatever water drops there is done and gone. So it's not gonna impact the peak rate. We can do something right up in this area, and the amount of water that goes down through, by the time this area is gonna increase that peak rate, because the peak doesn't really start until most of this water gets down into that area. So, really, that's what you're looking at, is what the peak rate of runoff is, because that's what causes erosion. The volume of water, a little bit of extra water, either a little bit, more or less, is something that you're always gonna have a little bit more water. But if you're looking at mitigating runoff, the important thing is mitigating the peak rate of runoff. Wetlands want water.
Well, actually, wouldn't, in terms of the amount of surface water that's going, this driveway is going to interrupt the flow that's now there and will divert it more towards the road. Because the stuff that gets picked up by the swale is going to end up in the road, and now it would end up going down the hill.
It's still all gonna go down the same place. It's all gonna wind up being down into this, well, no, that's not true. There's a catch basin right about here, okay, halfway down across this lot here. So any of the drainage that comes off this part of the road goes down the swale and goes into this culvert and goes across the street. So realistically, the watershed is probably from here to here, as far as what heads toward the pond, which isn't a very big area. It comes down the road, goes into the culvert, and goes across. And that's what the intent is, to capture most of the groundwater and anything that's on the surface that can bleed down through the stone, crushed stone, and get into the perforated pipe that maybe gets into that and drains down into that catch basin that goes across the road.
You mentioned you described them as the speed bumps going down the swale. What's the lifespan on those?
Well, until the swale gets stabilized. Because right now it would be crushed stone, or riprap rock with the check dams. Once the riprap gets stable, and once a vegetated swale gets going with grass and whatnot, by that point in time, sometimes those get washed away, or they get knocked over or whatever, and eventually they go away. I don't think they're maintained for a long period of time. It might be there for 3 to 5 years. I don't think a homeowner is going to continue to maintain those, but they're going to certainly have to maintain any erosion that goes down into a driveway, no different than any of our driveways. We have to maintain our driveways. So that's on their property.
So you're designing in a system to slow down the water before it hits the town road that is going to require current and future landowners to do a little more than
No different, this is just
average.
the driveway right here. No different than the Brown's driveway right there. It's the same thing. That's fairly stable now. I don't believe
It
there's,
isn't stable at all. In fact, I have pictures to show how my banking has been eroded by the water that comes off of that hill.
so anyways, everybody's property, they have to maintain their own property. Is what the point is.
Not yet.
So it's just, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's really.
It does. I don't really like the answer, actually, because you're asking for approval to design in a system, a driveway, a swale, that is going to be an ongoing problem for somebody.
No, that's not true. It's not a problem, it's the maintenance, like everybody has to maintain their driveway.
Okay? Not everybody has steep driveways like this. But
Well, we've got 2 of them right here.
we do.
Now, those were put in without any design for swales on the sides of the roads. It wasn't put in with any check dams. It wasn't put in with any grade specifications or width for emergency vehicles, but it's there. And one way or another,
But if a mistake was made or it wasn't caught back then, it doesn't, mean we should do it again.
Exactly, exactly.
So-
And, I myself am more cognizant of what the current NFPA rules are, where a few years ago, maybe I was not. So, and I'm sure a lot of you people were not, but I think that we have to try to meet those requirements as best we can, especially emergency vehicles.
But water's becoming and how we handle it is becoming a bigger and bigger issue on the flows we're getting nowadays. Okay. Well, that's all for now.
All right. I'm going to, do we have any more questions from the board right now? No. All right. I'm going to open the floor to abutters. Would anybody like to say anything? I would. Back up.
Gregory Vincent, I live at 30 Thornell. It didn't have anything to do with the driveway that was built there. We bought the house, it was already existing for 7 years. But what I can tell you about is, this has been an abnormally dry winter. You didn't really get a good picture of what's really happening with the water flow over there. It's got nothing to do with our driveway, it's just what comes out of that mountain that's behind us. What's gonna happen here in the future, when they start digging for foundations and stuff, start moving dirt around, this is gonna aggravate this situation even more. Up behind our house, all the way up to that, at least that first stone wall, is all clay. If this was a wet day, I'd walk you up there and let you walk in it, because you'd have probably mud right up to your ankles at least. It doesn't stop. There's a little creek that's up there, a natural spring. We were notified of it when we bought the property. We talked to Forrest Reynolds, he was still alive at that time. And he suggested that we don't mess with it, because that was like a little aquifer that actually flowed water down to his ponds that were on his property line. That hasn't been factored into any of this discussion here. It runs probably 10 out of the 12 months of the year. During the winter months, it's really running hard. Again, going back to where we are this year, we've had about 8 or 9 weeks of little snow, little water coming down, and everything is frozen in place. So the day that folks walked around out there only saw it from the roadside. They didn't really see it up on the hill. I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's a lot more water coming out of there than people really realize there is. And that water is going to be affected by a whole bunch of different things that are going to take place here, and it's very unfortunate. The only other thing I'd like to say about it is that we've been worried from the day we got in there about what was going to happen with the wells and so forth, because the wells only go down so deep. When Shinberg was going to put a development up there, that was one of the things that we had talked to him about. He came to our house and said, gee, what can I do to make this right? And he was willing to sink another well for us. He was willing to make whatever corrections were necessary, and we still have the documentation that he gave us. In this case here, all these houses are getting put right in around us, and I know that the homeowners can do whatever they want to do. They bought the land. The problem is that it looks like, from our standpoint, we're being pushed out of this town. Every one of those houses, depending on where they locate them on that property, takes away any privacy we had in our backyard. Look at your plans, you'll see it yourself. And the other thing is, as far as the road goes, Gibbs had cut back those edges that you've been talking about here right along. How many years ago? It didn't really make a difference. I mean, the water that was coming out of there just got aggravated by the fact that they pulled more dirt away, and it just made more water flowing down through the road out there. There are times when that little swale that's next to our driveway fills out and goes right across the end of the driveway. We can't stop it. And I don't think that anything they do out there is going to really stop it, not unless you've got a big, big culvert to take it away when it's really bad. That's my input anyhow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcella Vincent, 30 Thornell. I do have pictures of our area if you'd like to see what we're talking about. It shows how we have ice in our backyard from the water that flows down. Last year, my husband and my granddaughter used it as a skating pond. It's part of our driveway that goes to the new garage. but it was flooded because of the water coming off the banking. There, like my husband said, there is a stream that comes through our area backyard in 2 different places, flows down over the banking and down over into Ed's Pond. Even if you build your driveway, like you say, the water is still going to penetrate through our yard and down over and will impact that driveway. And if they use any kind of salt or sodium or anything like that, it's going to wash into Ed's Pond, which could affect his animals and livestock. So would you like to?
Sure, you can give them and we can pass them around. That'll be great.
I've got a question. I want you to point to the map. Okay, so now, this is, you were
This
talking
is
about a
my-
new garage.
This is the new garage
That's-
here.
okay.
This is the existing garage that was attached to the house when we bought it.
Okay,
And this is the new one.
Now, you-
But there's a stream that comes right down here, goes right aside of this, and back of here, down and down over. There's also back here, one that comes in and connects to that one and goes back down.
so they're flowing this way, which then would be
Impacting the driveways.
intercepted by the swale that's on the driveway. So the water, which now would be going this way, is going to go that way.
And then back to the...
Yeah.
So it goes to the same place.
Well, but it'll be in the road, as opposed to overland over the...
It will not come back onto their property.
Right.
So once it's off the property, it's off their property.
Right.
So there's nothing that's going to be changed as far as bringing the water back onto their property.
Right.
This is all way down in the front, so there's nothing going to impact this area.
No, it's this area here that has the water.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But now, okay, now that I'm standing here, so this swale that you were talking about...
That's this swale right here.
Yeah, okay.
And right at the property line, it's going to have a culvert across. It's right about the property line.
There's going to be a culvert here, but,
Yep.
okay. 'Cause
Yep.
I guess I didn't see it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just a typical
Right.
driveway culvert at that
Okay.
point in time.
Okay.
Without the catch basins and no.
And the
drainage
catch
line.
basin that brings the water across the road?
is right,
What-
the one that's existing is right in front of my house.
Right here,
Oh, okay.
right there.
Okay.
So any of this water that comes down here, it's going to go
Right.
into that catch basin and go across
Right.
the street.
Okay.
So there really isn't much more water that comes down here. It's going to just take any of the water that comes down here and go into the same place, whether the sheet flows this way or whether it goes down the swale and goes across.
Yeah, so really, there should be very little flow that's going to affect you.
Not necessarily. I mean, right now you have it
Yeah.
flowing as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Going down over the hill, this is cutting through our land. This is ice, the water coming out of the banking with the snow.
You should just pass
Yeah,
those pictures
right.
around just give them to Mr. Zelinski and we'll pass them around and take a
And
look.
there's pictures of our driveway where it's already eroded from the water.
And is this on your property?
Have we taken jurisdiction yet? Did we
Yes.
do that
Yeah.
last meeting? We did that last meeting, okay.
So it looks like you've put in these, basically these ditches to try to,
No, that's the erosion from the water coming off the hill. When you
Okay.
moved in
So I mean, if they're having this problem on their side of the driveway, it's just their problem to take care of it, like you're saying.
We're not
with this
adding
wheel.
anything.
No, but I mean, it's deteriorating on their property, so they should be taking care of it.
That's on their driveway. I would agree with that, but there's nothing that we're proposing here that's going to add water, because we're not doing anything up in this area. Our development of these two lots is down near the street, and this is all going to take place and all drain down across the edge of the driveway and down this way.
Sorry about that.
It's all going to drain down and go this way, so there's nothing impacting their property. And they probably do have a lot of water coming onto their property, but we're not doing anything that's going to add to that.
Well, and you can't, you're not allowed to by state law. It says you can't
That's what I
purposely divert your water off of your property onto somebody else's, right?
So that it drains toward the street.
Right.
And this part here drains toward the driveway, it goes down the edge of the driveway.
So these pictures are basically coming in from their backyard, coming down off the hill. Do you think that the two lower proposed lots, or possibly three, are they going to face the same?
No, because,
Erosion issues?
you know, we aren't cutting into the slope like they're cutting. There's going to be some excavating here, also in order to get the foundations in, but we're also leveling off in the front, and so there's going to be some excavating here, but there won't be bankings like when their driveway was put in. You can see the contours are very steep right there, as indicated by the pictures. I didn't put the driveway in, I don't know who put the driveway in, but they did cut that slope pretty steep. I think they could have probably put the driveway a little bit further away from that cow lane, the stone wall, and it wouldn't have had such a steep banking there, but, I mean, I don't know why it was done like that.
So you mentioned the base of the water table's pretty high in that whole area.
The test pits,
The test pits.
well, 24 to 36 inches. So when I say high, it's
It's pretty high.
like
Yeah.
an aquifer.
And, well, I guess, so you think that the design that you have there will be able to handle all the sheet flow coming down off the hill and not create,
It's gonna
Same
intersect some of the
problems.
sheet flow, and obviously where the house is, it's gonna have to, water drain around the back of the house. But again, when I get into, if I'm doing the septic design, I take a look at that, and then we can do some shallow, basins or something like that, pick up some of the roof water, swales, riprap swales that can get down and take care of the water down the end of the driveway, because there's gonna be no banking that's 4 to 6 feet high.
I have a quick question about, I was looking at this D1, where you have what your original grade was and the proposed grade. So it's actually going to come down at a less steeper angle. And where it used to come down, it was like this way and down this to the road, and now it's going to gently slope and it'll be even a little bit lower.
If you recall, when we were standing out there, that banking was
Yes,
fairly steep.
yes.
3 or 4 feet high,
Mhm.
and then up.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is take that cut off, which is like what we're showing here. And so that grade there is gonna be a 2.5 to 1 grade.
And that'll minimize the velocity of the,
Right, and plus we're gonna vegetate that, plant the trees, put the
Right.
Shrubs down at the bottom, and get the grass growing there.
okay. Yep. Yes, sir. Sure.
I have a couple of questions. Ed Batchelor, 42 Thornell Road.
Thank you.
Dennis, perhaps you could answer me this. On the driveway, the way I understand it, it's pitching away from my property, coming down the driveway. The pitch of the driveway itself will pitch toward the swale.
The uphill part of the driveway gets toward the street, so we're intercepting the water.
I'm talking about the pavement itself. You have a cross-section of the,
Right, it's crowned, it would be crowned.
so half the water would drain that way, half will come.
That's the way it would probably be.
I'm satisfied with it if it was going towards the swale, so the water would come down, and at the bottom of the hill, it would have a spot here to,
You will on this curve because you want to super elevate it
Right.
anyways, you want to tip it the other way, so.
now down here, approximately how many gallons is this? Is it gonna be a tank or just a,
Just going to be an open,
just a indent?
they rip wrap that area so that any water that comes down is like a sediment basin.
Okay, so if you
Pick
had
up
a
sediments and then.
front of rain, it would collect for a while before it sent it across. So about how many gallons would you, I mean, 1,000 gallons, I mean, you know, how big is the swale? If you have,
Could be 400 or 500 gallons, could be more, I don't know.
how big is the swale? That's my question. In diameter, I mean, I could figure volumes.
Probably 10 feet in diameter, foot 2 deep.
Okay, my other question is, on this grade here where you're changing the grade of the slope, you're actually increasing the grade potentially. Now, how are you going to maintain that slope until vegetation comes down?
That's what we have the note here for, is that staple jute mat, which is like North American green. What they do is they spread seed down and typically put like hay or mulch down there, ryegrass or some sort of straw grass. And then they take this mat, which is made out of biodegradable, because you can't use any type of PVC or plastic mesh anymore because snakes and animals get caught in it. So they use this biodegradable stuff that gets stapled to the soil and keeps it in place until the grass grows. Once the grass grows and the root systems grow into the ground, it stabilizes the slope. And they've used this stuff on one-to-one slopes, and it works. So,
On
so
this,
that's the
I mean, the
intent
slope
here
is
on this
going to be
thing.
approximately like this.
It's gonna be a
On
two-to-one
this
slope.
one.
Yeah,
It's going to be,
yeah, very similar to what's existing right here.
but this is covered with trees.
Exactly.
All these trees are
So-
gone. at the end.
So what happens there is they plant the grass, they put this jute mat down, staple it to the ground, and that prevents any erosion from taking place until the grass grows. And that's done, you can see the state highways, they do that all the time on steep slopes.
So would you also have some erosion control?
And there's erosion control like we show along the edge on the bottom to prevent any sediments during that time of growth from accumulating it, and I've got a detail for that too. This is what they call the filter sock, okay? It's like it's not a silt fence, it's like a wood chip sock that they put in, staple it to the ground, and that prevents any sediment, captures any sediment before it gets down. A lot of people now are using just dumping a pile of chips, because when they do a lot of logging, they wind up chipping all of the trees. And so they leave the piles of chips on the site, and then they take the chips and put them in the piles, and then a windrow, a foot or two high of wood chips, that acts as a filtering system for any runoff. So sometimes they'll use that instead of this, but either way, it still fulfills the intent of preventing sediments from running off. Yep, yep. 18 inches there, 12 to 18 inches high, and sometimes these wood chip berms, they make them that high or higher sometimes.
So it'll last a year or so for it to,
And yeah, that stays for quite a long time before it will dissipate, and a lot of times they say, once all the grass grows on the slope, you can do away with that by just cutting the fabric and letting it go down and letting the chips biodegrade.
I guess that's really the only question I have.
And the fabric is also, it's not plastic, it's, yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years probably, and that's all anticipated. So that's really what a lot of the projects are nowadays, is use type of biodegradable tilt sock. Chip berms.
A question on that, staying with that one driveway, you mentioned that essentially the plan you have right now is just the standard, crowned. You mentioned in the bend in the road, in the driveway, it would be more,
It may do that, I mean, it depends on how the contractor built it, but if I was doing it, I would super elevate it just a little bit, because you wouldn't want it to tip the other way if you're going around that curve, you
Well, that's what I'm looking towards that, because I think what the main question, or the concern here is the pollutants, whatever they may be, but when you have an impervious surface, you're gonna start getting pollutants. Keeping them from going to the outside or to the bachelor property. So if the specs for that driveway could have it, to make sure it is tilted, sloped, to keep all that on the inside corner, if you will, where then, if there are pollutants, they go down into the catch basin, and then hopefully,
Once this slope is well vegetated, you've got over 100 feet here, and most of it, that's gonna filter through all of that grass that's here. So anything that comes off this way is gonna be filtered pretty well. Anything that goes down through here is gonna go through the riprap swale, and then be captured in a small sediment basin at the bottom before the culvert. So
that's a pretty steep slope. The water's not gonna stay on that slope for very long, even if it is fully
Once the
vegetated.
driveway is well paved, you're not gonna get a lot of traffic up through there. So when we talk about pollutants, there's not a lot any more than anybody else's driveway, that, or the town road for that matter.
Is it your purview on how that driveway gets laid out, meaning the slope that we're talking about?
Yeah, they have to follow this grade here. I mean,
They gotta follow the grade, but I mean the tilt of the driveway we're talking.
I can draw it any way you wanna see it there, but whether somebody, when they build it, they're gonna kinda do it the way they want to. I think what this intent here is it shows what can be done, and I think when they build this, they're obviously gonna, on this curve here, they're gonna tip it to the inside.
So you're saying that no matter what your plans are, they're just gonna build it the way you want to anyway? Does that apply to the swales you're putting in and?
Well, I mean, I don't do the inspection. Who does the inspection of the town? I mean, these are the plans that I'm drawing up. Will they follow these plans? I would like to think they would. And who does the inspections for the town on a situation like this?
So can you make the plan with the slope in the driveway?
Sure.
I'd like to see that myself. Since you mentioned it would be a good idea, particularly on the corner.
I can show this window that the surface of the driveway to slope toward the gutter side.
Yeah, and particularly at the upper, which is where you talked about with the corner, it would make sense anyway, and I think once you get down below that corner, it's going away from the neighbor's property anyway.
Very good. I can do that. That's easy enough.
The last couple of developments we had in town, whoever builds them, they seem to go in and clear cut the whole lot though. Is that on the map or on the plans? Please don't cut the trees down? I mean, it seems like it's economical for somebody to have a whole lot cleared. They moved to Newton, but then they're living in a bare patch, just a spot with no trees. Are we allowing this here by saying, go ahead and do it? Because whoever they hire can say, hey, I can get the trees cut for free if we cut them all down. I mean, I don't want to see that. We've got some disasters in town.
Mr. Zelinski, it's a scenic road anyway, so that if there's a certain distance back that they can't do that, is that correct?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's a certain distance back, but they can only, then it can, what's it, 20 feet deep or 50 feet, you gotta have the trees, but after that, they could just strip everything, right?
That's
I mean,
that's
what do we-
anybody,
Oh,
that's,
we're talking
it's
about
anybody's
drainage here.
prerogative to be able to do that once they own that piece of property, if that's what they want to do with it.
So all his
Most people
plans here,
wouldn't.
looking at it, did he take the calculations with a treeless lot? You know what I mean? That's, how much more water are we gonna get when there's no trees?
There's a difference if it's
Yeah, I mean.
like all the flat lots out on Curryville Road, which they
Yeah,
cleared,
there's
which was a
puddles.
scenic road.
Right.
Those were pretty much flat, though.
Right.
We're talking
Yeah.
a fairly, steep area here, that if somebody went and did the same thing, these numbers are off,
Yeah, big time.
so.
I doubt anybody would do that, though.
Well, how do we
As-
guarantee that?
You can't
He
guarantee
just
it.
said
You
he
can't
could-
guarantee it. There's no way you can guarantee it.
I would
Once
like
they-
to have the plan say that a well-stocked, consistent forest, if you want to call it that, is left.
But we don't,
The drainage
if we want to make those kinds of requirements, you're going to have to change the zoning ordinance.
Right.
We don't have authority in the zoning ordinance to say, you've got to keep trees on your lot.
But we're talking about maintaining a road that hundreds of people use every day, that if they strip, take all the trees down, the water's just gonna pour off the hill. You already
Well,
saw
look at-
pictures of a stream. I don't think these people went out, and dug those holes, the ditch is already draining. I mean, there's nothing that the town can do to,
Not without changing the zoning ordinance.
Without
Yeah, see,
changing
I'm not
the
talking about the scenic, that's why I said, okay, Curryville Road, flat lots, that's one thing. But if we were to approve this, we're approving it based on these drawings, based on a stand of vegetation
What we-
that gives you a certain amount of flow rate.
What we can do is, he has proposed revegetating, and we can put in a planting bond to make sure the plants get planted. That doesn't ensure that 5 years from now, somebody goes and clear cuts it,
Yeah.
because we have no control of that.
Well, and that planting area is only where the cut was down closer to the road, I believe.
Well, we could talk about what kind of planting he has to have for his erosion control on the other parts of the lot that he's disturbing.
I'm just, like I mentioned before, I don't care, I'm just trying to keep the silt from going on neighbor's property. And we've all seen that happen enough, and once the stamp gets, go ahead and do it, then it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, we can ensure that when the disturbance happens, the planting happens. But we can't, I don't think we can guarantee anything beyond that.
But we can attach a road bond.
A road bond and a planting
We-
bond. We've done planting bonds before for other areas where there's been serious,
Typical house development, they need to have a stable site anyways. If they start causing erosion that goes into the road, the town would force them to correct it anyways. And
Right.
they don't want that.
No.
Anybody that's building a house like this, they would want to make sure that it gets stabilized as soon as possible, because they don't want to have a problem coming back on them with any erosion problems.
Right.
So, most builders, or all builders, in that sense, I can't say speak for all of them, but I think in situations like this, it's not an easy site. And I'd like to think that whoever does the building there is gonna do it properly. But we can't say who's gonna do it, and how they're gonna do it, but there certainly is an inspection process that's done by the town for the building inspector. And I'm not sure who does the driveway inspection, is it Bob Liberone that does the driveway inspections too?
No, it's Mike Pavero.
Like the
Road agent does that.
The road agent is certainly working with the building inspector on sites like this to make sure things get stabilized as soon as possible. And if there's any erosion situation that happens, you've got the road bond to be able to deal with that. So,
Right.
and if anybody puts up a road bond, obviously they're gonna wanna get it back someday. So they're certainly not gonna wanna do anything to jeopardize that. So,
Right.
I would say the town is protected to a certain degree on something like that, and I think you're covered with that road bond, because that's part of what the road is, what's disturbance to the right of way, which is not only the surface of the road, but any of the drainage and sediments that come down to the swale.
Right. Right. And maybe what
yeah,
you
but
want to do is,
the road bond wouldn't address the planting on the side of that
No.
driveway.
no, we could attach a restoration bond for that.
Yeah. Right, but I think we may have to have sort of two different bonds, but it's, I don't know, how we work that, just to make sure that it does get appropriately stabilized by whoever does it when they do
But
it.
that should need to be attached to the lot.
Because that's really up to you. That's
Right.
how you work that out. That's
Right.
really up to you. I mean, I'm providing the plans and saying that that's what's
Right,
being done.
right.
And as far as the building permit is concerned, maybe that's part of an occupancy permit as far as that lot is concerned. That this vegetation has to be in place and stable prior to an occupancy permit, which you certainly can do that.
Yeah.
And that can be
we can mandate that that goes on the deed for that particular lot.
Well, Bill, on the plan,
Right.
I mean, you want, yeah. on the
Right, and that
subdivision
way it
plan.
would be on the deed for that lot, that would need to,
Whatever wording you want to put on the plan, I said we could put on the plan to
Yeah.
cover that.
Mhm.
And that's a reasonable solution to
Yeah.
your concern.
Yeah.
Can I ask Larry, does the fire department, I heard, like, up to this meeting, there was 4 buildings, 4 lots. Now I'm hearing subdivision. Do we require either sprinkled housing or cisterns? I mean,
More of a planning board question as far as systems. I know on Chase, we did that 3-house lot had sprinklers, but go down a half a mile and there's only 2 houses that didn't require sprinklers, so those came from the planning board, that's their rules.
no, that's,
They can answer that for you.
Well, when it gets to, what was the cutoff at 3? 4 lots is a major.
yeah.
4 lots getting
Hey.
sprinklers?
I mean, I know we're not supposed to look at it, but there's a potential for 44 lots.
Yeah, well, when that comes in, then we'll address
But-
Yeah,
that.
but
that's-
these
that's something
okay,
totally
But these
different.
4 fall in, I think, the law, you can either have them sprinkle it or have a cistern. And then, who maintains the cistern? We've had that problem in town.
It's on private property,
that's right.
so they own it.
Well, sometimes you get a lien or something, right away. But we don't think this, especially that one way up in the corner there. I can see one fire truck getting there, but does it have to be run by the fire chief, or, I don't know, Barbara, what
But
are you looking at about cisterns or sprinklers or?
Fire chief has already looked at the plan.
yeah, and the fire chief has no problems. I don't
Okay,
believe that we need to require a cistern.
And you don't require sprinklers?
one or the other, right under,
The sprinklers came out of the planning board for the past, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, but let's see. Do we
A-
remember where that
Actually,
is?
no. The planning board hasn't required sprinklers. It's been the building department for a building permit.
Right.
Because
I thought the fire chief said on Chase Road it was the planning board. Can you verify that, Jim?
If I can talk.
If he can answer, because he knows more about it. He talked to the chief about it.
Okay. Okay.
Up until last year, the law allowed and actually required sprinklers for certain distances from road. If you have like a 1,500-foot driveway, you had to have a sprinkler.
But how many houses on that? Just one house?
It could be required, if you had one house with a 1,500-foot long driveway, that house could be required to be sprinkled.
By who?
That was required by law. They changed the law last year and removed the ability to require sprinklers
Right,
in residential houses,
right.
in anything other than a planned subdivision. I think the problem is that this is subdividing land. A planned subdivision where you have, okay, you take that 41 acres and you divide it into 40 house lots and 2 some reconfiguration. That you can, however, that also depends upon the length from the existing road to the furthest point in. It came up under, when we did Walnut Farm Road. Walnut Farm Road actually has a cistern, but they're not actually the distance that is required for them to have been forced. They chose to put in a sprinkled the houses and put in the cistern. However, the law was redacted.
So it's not required.
No,
Actually, no, the law now says you cannot require them.
Right.
right. Now, they could choose to do that, but,
Right, you could always choose a
right,
plan.
right, but we can't mandate that.
Right.
Does that answer you, Mr. Zelinski?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Barbara?
I have a statement, something that might take care of this problem. You know, right next to this lot, we have a pond. which is thousands of gallons of water. And I'm sure if my neighbor's house is on fire, the fire department could certainly pump out of my pond.
We
So,
looked at it last year, either
Thank you.
last year or the year before, and you just can't get there from the road with a fire truck to
that's true.
get that water.
But, you know, that's not to say that you couldn't put a dry hydrant in, or, you know, something that would make it to the benefit of the town, you know, so I would think that would take care of a cistern, you know, and
Thank you.
Where is the nearest dry hydrant to this location, or water source?
Whittier Street, and then down by the apartments there on 108, so a mile. I mean,
How's that make the fire department feel?
Use tank of water, it's a tanker shuttle.
we'd get one tank of water up there.
Just bring in tankers and just
That's, you
fill
know.
up the trucks.
I mean, especially that one there being so, but that's just me, and, you know, being in the fire department.
That's a lot of the town, is that way.
Yep,
Well,
but whatever the,
yeah, that's not just this, but I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed at another,
Yeah.
Town with no fire hydrants, that's the issue, no matter what.
Right. So does the board feel like that they're ready to make any kind of motion?
Does anybody else from the public have anything to say?
Anybody else would like to say anything? Yes, come on, Trish.
I'm really just reiterating what Mr. Andrews said. It would be great, and I think Dennis agreed, but if it, on the plans, on that driveway next to 42, number 42, that it is pitched on the inside so that it's not flowing down the hill. If that could be put maybe on the plans, like Mr. Andrews said, maybe we can make sure that people are addressing them properly and doing what's supposed to be on that plan. The other thing is the cutting, when you talked about, Mr. Zelinski talked about clear cutting. I think on the plans, it talked about, and Conservation made comments about planting on the top of the slope and then as you're going down the hill. So although things have to be cut, there's going to be replanting done. Might not be the beautiful giant trees, because I think, what did we decide? More than 6 feet, it's not going to be able to take the slope initially. So that would happen, but in addition to that, Conservation can do like we did at Currierville and walk along and re-flag or do like a select cut, make a recommendation for select cut. But again, I think you've already addressed that in the plan so that it will be revegetated properly, right? All right. But if it could be on the plans like Mr. Andrews suggested, at least for that driveway, pitched away from the slope, I think that would help at least from the stewardship committee's perspective.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have one question. If you're tipping the driveway, are you tipping it towards my property now?
Well, we
And
tip-
if so, then is the erosion going to affect me again?
no, they're going to be tipping it towards a swale that will carry the water away from you.
But it's still going towards my property.
It's down slope, actually. It's not gonna drain to your property, because it's 5 or 10 feet lower. That swale's gonna be 5 to 10 feet lower than your property. So there's no way that swale can go up slope into your property.
I'll hold you to it.
Well, if you read the contours, I don't know if you can or not, but it's pretty clear, you can tell. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 feet right there. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 feet right there. There's 2, 4, 6 there. There's 2, 4 right there, all the way down. So, I mean, it's,
Should help.
I don't know how I can explain it any better than that. It's-
Good question. I had thought about that when I was talking about it, but by looking at it, it shouldn't affect
Yeah.
you guys at all.
but but I've had conversations with the board in this sheet number 1, they proposed to put these driveways in these houses, but then when I've talked to the board, that's just the drawing. When they get in there, I'm told they can put the house anywhere they want. Now, if they do that, how does that affect all your swales and water runoff? That's a true statement, right?
Yes.
I've had conversations.
Yes, because this
How do we-
plan,
this
this plan
plan-
has to show where they can put
Yeah.
a house, a septic, area and a well radius. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the builder who's going to come in is going to put it in that
So that
exact
makes
spot.
your,
You're right.
you know, water runoffs if they
Somebody
just,
could build a house right down there, as long as they meet the building setback requirements, they could build it right down close to the road.
but,
As long as they meet the setbacks and wetlands and property lines, and they can pump the wastewater all the way up to the top of the hill. So, I mean, I'm just showing where it can go. That's
Okay.
reasonable. But if somebody wants to put it someplace else on the lot and they can make it work, by all means, they have the right to do that.
no.
And that's the way any subdivision is. I mean, a lot of cases, you don't even show where the house goes, and you don't even show, a lot of towns, you don't even need to show where the driveway is or the house, as long as you meet the frontage and area and
All right, oh, thanks.
whatnot, so.
The reason these are shown on here is because for a subdivision approval from the state, you have to show that the proposed lot will support all these things, the well radius,
Yep.
an upland for the house, and the septic area. And that's why they're shown, but they're just an example of where they could go. Okay? All right. Is the board prepared to make any type of motion?
Before we do that, now we talked about a road bond, and we talked about I talked about a planting bond.
Planting bond.
And I think before we do the approval, we're gonna have to make some arrangements for how are we gonna set what those bonds are and how they're gonna be handled.
Okay. I think that the typical road bond, like we did on Heath Street, is $5,000 for each lot. And the builder, whoever's going to build on that lot, would provide that bond at the same time as they pull their driveway permit. And we can attach a planting bond to that, but we may need to get some input from the town engineer or conservation on how much that should be.
Right, that was sort of my point, is in terms of, in terms of making a motion tonight, I'm not sure. I think, I've got no problem with, approving it, but exactly how we word the conditions,
Well, typically, as far as the driveway, that's what I was talking about before, who does the inspection on the driveway? And that planting scheme, which is part of the driveway for site visibility, that's
Right.
all part of it.
right.
So when the inspection goes for the driveway to verify that the driveway is safe driveway with site distance, the planting scheme for that will come into play also, and that's part of the occupancy permit, is to make sure that not only the building's okay, but the site is stable, the driveway is acceptable driveway, the way it doesn't cause water to run into the street, and part of that slope is part of that. So it can be a note that puts on the plan that just says that the planting scheme shown on sheet D1 shall be in place and stable, the slope stabilized prior to occupancy permit.
Because that was sort of my other question, is in terms of, who's going to inspect and how we get that done.
You were saying like the variable.
Well, my question, in some of the commercial site plan works that we've done, we've had the town engineer do inspections.
Right.
And is that something that we should consider for this?
Well, then, if we do that, then we have to set up an escrow fund for that, because he's not going to do it for free.
Right, no, but that's sort of,
I have one more person out there who'd like
Okay.
to say something. Come up to the podium and tell us who you are, please.
Yeah, my name is Rick Russell. My curiosity, the plantings are required by conservation?
Yes,
Well, no, they were requested by conservation, they're required by planning.
Okay, can conservation do the inspection
oh,
on the plantings?
Thanks, buddy.
They have,
I was gonna be the next person to raise my hand anyway. We have done this. We've actually come up with a planning bond quite a while ago, on another parcel that was actually on the aquifer. And we were the ones that did the site walk because we knew what we wanted planted. And when it was not actually being maintained, he actually got fined because he wasn't maintaining it. But he's right. We would know what we were looking for, so we certainly could.
that would be a good idea, because I don't think that the road agent who's going to do the driveway inspection has any idea what that is supposed to be doing.
Right.
Right,
So,
okay.
okay,
Right.
so, thank you,
Okay.
both of you. His name is Rich Russell. Mr. Russell, do you live in town?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Address, please?
7 Riversdale Road.
Thank you. Okay.
so how does that work with a potential?
Well, now, we still need to figure out how much.
That we have to have a conversation on, because we've gotta look at the plantings.
Can we just put the bond in?
If you tie it to the occupancy permit, because that's the thing about an occupancy permit, then you can get a sign off by the road agent, sign off by the conservation, sign off by the building inspector.
Yeah, but we need to put the bond in place, and that, basically, the occupancy permit, it constitutes the release of the bond. Because then it will have been done.
Just do 5,000. The trees, you can get a lot of trees for 5,000.
I have no feel.
I don't either.
Jim, we have done some other planting bonds previously. What kinds of numbers were we talking about in those other places? Or they were a lot more extensive than this?
The last one was probably twice that square footage, and I believe it was 7,500. However, that was also 11 years ago.
Okay.
So the price
So
of
like-
trees has probably increased.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I
But maybe,
personally, just speaking as a human being,
Yeah,
$5,000 would definitely take care of the two sides of the one driveway and then the other driveway.
okay.
It could be severely affected if, as Mr. Quintal said, if where 36 Thornell is, if they decide to build way down near the road instead of up on top of the hill, it could possibly be less.
Yeah.
all right, but you're talking about $5,000 would be good for all three lots.
Right, so you'd have to divide that.
Okay, so maybe 1,500 to 2,000.
For each house.
There's 4 houses.
Yeah. 2,000 planting bond?
On the, just question for you, on the plantings, or with conservation also, you mentioned red maple, birch, hemlock. What particular size plantings?
No more than 6 feet.
I'm not talking about visibility, I'm talking about the size of tree you'd be planting.
6 feet?
Okay, well, that's some money then.
Yeah, $300 a piece, $400 a piece.
Yeah.
If you have 6 or 7 trees, you know, you're up
Okay.
around a couple $1,000, so
Yeah.
that seems reasonable, I would think. The trees are gonna be planted, they're not gonna be, I mean, the slope has to be stable, they're not gonna walk away from that, because that's part of the road bond. Again, it's within the right of way, and your road bond is gonna cover any damages to the road or anything within the right of way.
Right.
The swale, the slope, or whatever, so it all could be tied into.
Yeah, the only problem I've got with having it as just part of the road bond is the big long driveway, which sort of really isn't that close to the road. Yeah, right, so I mean, you may need, that's another way of handling it, is to include the plantings in the road bond for the two on the lower two, and then have a separate planting bond just for the big long driveway.
Separate sign.
Yeah.
But whatever the bond is has to go with each individual lot, because whoever's going to buy this lot would have to provide
Right.
the road bond and the planting bond.
Right.
Or restoration bond, or whatever you want to call it. So there would be 3 different ones. One would be attached to each lot.
Right.
Mr. Russell would like to say something again. Go ahead.
I'm just questioning whether or not that we really should be even requiring a bond on plantings. I think that's kind of a strange direction to go in here, to be honest with you. If you have approval by conservation and everybody's understanding what has to be done, it's in the owner's best interest to get this work done, to get the project completed. They're not gonna cheapen out and try to not to
Well,
put the plantings
that's
in. They're
true.
not going to do that.
But the person that buys this lot is not necessarily going to follow Mr. Quintel's plan. And Mr.
Okay.
Quintel's plan is what we like. So that's the issue right there. Is
So
that-
here's,
I mean, it would be
if the
nice.
person coming in changes the plan, do they have to come back to this board?
No,
They don't.
they don't. That's the issue.
Once the lots are cut, we're done.
But could they satisfy the Conservation Commission?
Right.
But that's not going to be, I mean, unless we have a bond that is released by, that the Conservation Commission can advise us that they're satisfied and we've released it, that the Conservation doesn't have any way of having any real input in it getting done.
Right. Okay. Mr. Curio?
Hi, I'm Mark Rochon.
Sorry.
If all of your concerns are attached to the occupancy permit, regardless of who is building that, you're not gonna spend $300,000 and hold up an occupancy permit because you didn't plant $1,800 worth of trees. So if you tie what conservation wants into that occupancy permit, it all has to be done, and nobody has to worry about it.
So what you're suggesting is rather than us requiring a bond, just requiring that an occupancy permit not be issued until the area is
That way,
stabilized.
everything that is noted has to be performed, and somebody who just spent $350,000 is not holding up their occupancy over plantings. And conservation can still obviously oversee it. It goes by the plan, and if something were to change, the house location changed, whatever, they still have to be satisfied. And that's linked to the occupancy, so regardless of what happens, to sort of cover you, if somebody decides to move that house, relocate, whatever, plantings change, if conservation is not satisfied, occupancy doesn't get issued. House sits there empty. So if it's all tied back to the occupancy, it's going to ensure that that gets done.
The only thing with that, there's no sign off for them to sign off on. It's only,
If it's noted on a plan somewhere,
but on the occupancy
We
permit
can
itself.
add them on the, we can put them on the occupancy
We'd have to
permit.
do the form over.
No, we don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, because the planning board, a lot of times, planning board has to sign off on occupancies. We just put a line on the bottom and put planning board, and then planning board has to sign. That's what we had to do, I think it was for Heath. You can just put a line and put conservation and have them sign there too. You don't have to do a new form. You can, there's plenty of room at the bottom of that form to add either the planning board and/or conservation for a sign-off on these particular lots.
The same argument could be used for road bonds, though, and we've learned our, I think
Well, no,
most towns have learned their lessons. To not just tie, we wouldn't be thinking, oh, let's just tie the road bond, we don't have a road bond, we'll just tie that to occupancy. permit.
No, because on certain lots, when you attach a road bond to it, they're not going to get any kind of building permit until they pull the road bond, until they pay for the road bond. They have to put that in escrow, and then they can have a building
But the
permit.
road agent is on the occupancy permit. He's already on it.
And that, so, does that answer that question?
Well,
No?
I think my point stands, we could use the same argument that, well, why do we have a road bond if we're not gonna let them occupy the house?
Because
we-
Learned.
the one thing that we don't get, we don't protect the environment and the neighbors by doing it, by attaching the plantings to the building permit, is if someone starts and strips the land and then doesn't start building right away.
Right.
A lot of damage can be done,
Right,
erosion in a short period,
right.
so.
That's what we lose by just tying it to the
Right, so, okay,
to the building, to the occupancy permit.
okay. So we can just ask for a separate bond then for that, for the plantings.
That would be, the way these lots are set up, just personally, it's the top lot, I'm not sure what the proposed lot number is, but with the long driveway, that's the one that I'm more
Yeah,
interested
it's
in
the
actually having.
6872.
Right,
Oh, okay.
but
That's the
it's
one I'm
the
more
other two
interested.
lots that need the plantings in the front.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Jim?
Mr. Doggett.
When we did the planting bond in the past, it had to be in place for 3 years to guarantee that the plants actually made it. It wasn't a case of just planting. We required that bond to remain with the town for 3 years. And if tree died, it had to be replaced.
Okay,
It's not something where the money was released as soon as the building was occupied.
Yeah, so tying it, yeah, you can't just tie it to the occupancy permit.
Right.
no, I think they have to be separate.
And you wouldn't want to, I was going to say, well, just make it part of the road bond,
Right, but
put
that-
down there, but
No, I think we wanted
Gotta be
to,
separate.
we're separate.
But I will explain to the applicants that these bonds that we're talking about, the people who are going to buy these pieces of property and build on them are the ones that are going to put these bonds in. That's not your responsibility unless you're planning on building on these, okay? I just want to let you know that.
Yeah, basically, the bonds need to be in place before there's any disturbance to the land.
Yes.
And before they can get either a driveway permit or a foundation permit.
Right. So that's going, so that kind of note's going to have to be added to the plan too, then.
Right. And I don't have the exact wording of how that needs to, what wording exactly has to go on the plan for those. I know what I want, I just don't know how it needs to be said.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
And again, I'm gonna ask Jim, you've crafted I mean, you know what I want.
Yes.
Can you put that into the appropriate words for me?
If you give me a couple of minutes, and that would be part of any conditional approval.
Right, that's,
As opposed to just on the plan, you would want it stated in your
Yes.
notice of decision.
right, exactly. I'm sort of I think you have a good idea of what I'm looking for. And if you could sort of give me the right words so I can make a motion for a conditional approval.
and do we want to look at, we were talking about
Yeah.
different amounts for different lots?
No, it should be the same.
Same for each lot.
Oh, should be.
5,000 road bond and, what do we talk, 2,000? 2,000 for the planting bond.
Okay.
For the ones with the thing in the front, do we really need that much?
This one?
Yeah, for the two little ones.
These are the ones that need most of the plantings.
There's going to be a lot of plantings on the side of that big, long driveway.
The spec just says,
This
Seeded
is
and
all
mulched.
this is the shared driveway.
Yeah.
This is all in front of the shared driveway.
Right, but there's also going to be, all over here. That all
Oh,
has to be...
you're talking about the site stable,
Yeah.
the slope stabilization.
Right.
That's different, okay.
Which is
Okay.
also going to be all planting.
And grass. Mr. Quintel, isn't that slope stabilization just going to be grass?
No, okay,
It's just slope stabilization.
okay.
So the question is, do you require a planting bond for that lot, where there really isn't any plants except the grass stabilizing? So
I don't know, maybe not.
so it should be only for those
These
first
two
two lots.
lots.
But realistically, it's a common driveway, so the question is, which lot's gonna be built first? It should be...
Well, whoever,
We're gonna build one house first, okay, and the planting scheme is planted for that lot, and somebody else comes in to build the second lot.
whoever cuts the driveway in first.
no, I think, no, they both need to. Whether
Well,
the
if they're done
driveway's
10,
there,
15, 20 years apart,
but whether the driveway's there or not, there's going to be traffic coming in to that driveway to build this house, and that's what the road bond is for. Well,
that's
it's
what I
not
mean.
for the driveway.
Whoever builds first and cuts the driveway in is gonna have to put the bond in, because the second person, that area that we're talking about near the road will already been done. Isn't that correct?
Yes and no. Okay,
Okay.
yes, okay, so the driveway's going to be in, so
So maybe the bond should be worded such that it should be for whoever applies for the driveway permit in order to build a house.
Or just put it in there, keep it simple, and then have the ability to waive the second one once it's,
I don't think that that's correct, and I'll tell you why.
okay?
Okay? Because the road bond isn't attached to the driveway. It's for damage that might happen to the road from for the construction of the house. So whether the first driveway is in and that house is built, the next person next door is going to have more trucks coming up the road and everything, and so that bond is for the damage to the main road. It has nothing really to do with the driveway.
I was just talking about the planting scheme,
Planting.
planting bond. Because the planting bond has to go with the driveway. Whoever does
Right.
the house first cuts the driveway in and does the planting scheme.
Okay, so then they have to,
And whoever does that first
But they,
should be the one that's doing the bond for the planting scheme.
okay.
but the one who cuts in the driveway is going to have to do the planting for both of them, for land that's not on their lot.
Whoever does the driveway should be the one that does planting bond.
I don't know. How are you, if that's the case, I understand what you're saying, but if that's the case, then how do you ensure that when the second person who's going to build, if they're not going to build at the same time, doesn't do something to those plantings that are already there while they're trying to put their house in?
Well, they can, it's within the right of way. They're not supposed to do anything on the right of way. It's not their property.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm understanding what you're saying.
All right.
It should be really tied to the driveway. Whoever
okay.
puts the driveway in should be doing the planting bond.
Okay.
So we need a motion?
Well, I have one more question. Trish, if the person who's going to pull the driveway permit is going to do the plantings for both, the frontage of both of them, is $2,000 enough?
Why?
If it's for both lots? Yes.
Oh, one to put on the plan, one to...
That's why I said 5.
Okay, then we'll do 5. Then we'll just do 5.
Because they get the money back as long as they do the planting.
$5,000 for the planting bond.
$5,000 for the plan?
$5,000 for the planting bond, $5,000 for the road bond.
Okay.
And so, Yeah.
So are we ready?
Yep.
I think so.
Is everybody ready? I'll make a motion that we give a conditional approval for whatever this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the subdivision on tax map 6, block 8, lot 7-2, with the following conditions. First of all, the plan has to be changed to have the driveway sloped towards the swale. Also on the plan, the location of the well on lot 697 would be indicated. You have to set the bounds. I don't know how that one gets put in. Okay. And then on the plan also, and as a condition of approval, there'll be a replacement, a replanting bond of $5,000 per lot shall be in place before any permit is issued. The bond shall be in place for 3 years after the permit is issued. After the. Okay. And a $5,000 road bond per lot shall be in place before a driveway permit is issued and shall be in place until the occupancy permit is issued. Did I get that right?
Have a-
What?
I think it's not 5,000 per lot, it's 5,000 for the property.
no, it has to be per lot.
$5,000 per lot.
Per lot?
Yep.
So do we,
So then we go back to 2,000 then?
No. The planting bond is 5,000. Yes, it's $5,000 planting bond for whoever pulls the driveway permit for the shared driveway.
okay, so that's not the way it's written, but yeah, okay.
Because we kind of talked about that after we wrote it.
Do you have that for the minutes?
There's two drive.
Okay, there's the shared driveway.
Right.
That's going to have one
That's gonna have
One planting bond,
planting bond
2 driveway bonds,
and 2 road bonds.
road bonds,
two road
excuse me.
bonds, okay.
And then this one's going to need a road bond too.
Right. And are we going to require anything for a bond for the stabilization of the side of the hill?
I don't think so. I think they need to do that already. They're going to have to do that anyway. I don't think we need to require that.
Okay.
All right, I'll second your motion.
Okay, now, does the secretary have it the way, everything they need?
Yes.
Yeah, and the first 2 pages of the Mylar to be prepared to be recorded.
Yes, Mr.
Just
Chair?
one, this is a 4-lot, we keep just talking about 3 lots because there's only 3 driveways shown, but there's 4 lots here.
Yes.
So I would suggest that we need to just make it clear that the road bond would also apply to that 4th lot, because somebody's gonna build on it someday, right?
Should be, right?
Oh, the big lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
right.
4-lot subdivision we're talking
Yes.
about
Yeah,
here.
All right.
okay.
All right, so to each of the lots. Okay. Thank you.
And that's on, that would be covered by that language.
I think so. I heard something about.
Yeah, 5,000 per lot.
Per
Per
lot,
lot.
okay.
There you go. That's good.
So we're good
Okay,
for that. That goes to him.
thank you.
Okay, are we, you know what needs to be done? You're all right with it?
Get a copy of the decision from,
From Jim?
Right.
I'll be able to put that on the plan.
Okay. And you're all set, Jim? You know what to put in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I've seconded it.
But you're all set with everything else? Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask one question with regards to the planting bond? So you put a 3-year condition on it. The builder puts the plants in, does his thing. He's putting up the bond. He doesn't get his bond back. He sells the property.
3 years.
So he's going to hold that bond for 3 years. Yeah, I'm just curious how,
Yeah. Yeah, he gets it back after 3 years because they have to make sure that the plantings stay.
right.
And you can take your pictures. Thank you very much for providing those.
That's just a single set.
Yep, no, we need that. Yeah, sorry. But you can have one of the small ones. Thank you. Okay. I'll close the public hearing at 9:07. Thank you. I never remember about the time. Okay. All right. Excuse me, we're not finished with our meeting here, so if you're going to have another conversation, could you bring it over to the side, please? Yes, we'll need that. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is I need a motion for acceptance of the minutes of 1:28, 2:1, and 2:9.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of January 28th with changes.
Here we go.
Second. What are the changes?
With changes. So
there's two
the
more
first
sets of
one
minutes.
is on page 3.
All right, let me find my minutes. Let me find my minutes. Oh, okay, in front of my face, sorry. Okay, page 3?
Right. After the 125 development was called to order, Mr. Hamel recused himself.
My apologies.
Thank you.
And then, right before request for reconsideration, Mr. Hamel returned to the board.
Thank you.
Next one is a bit of a question. The request for consideration, no action was taken. There were some comments, and they might be worth putting into the minutes. There were my comments addressing the letter of reconsideration, and there were two things. One, first of all, Ms. White explained that there was no way of actually bringing it up for reconsideration, considering that the time had already elapsed for us to do that.
Okay.
And also considering that the person who made that request had specifically questioned why I did not recuse myself from those discussions, and I had explained why I had not recused myself, because it was an ordinance and not a plan. I think
If
that,
you would like to write those suggestions now, I will incorporate them into the minutes.
okay.
Thank you. Okay.
And other than that, there's just a couple of grammar things that we can live with.
And how are we doing with 2:1 and 2:9?
Well, why don't we do this one, and then the other two are fine.
Oh, you're not finished, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm done.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do I have a unanimous for 128?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, make a
It's
motion,
Roger and Mike.
make a
Okay.
motion to accept the minutes of the public meeting on February 1st and the site walk on February 9th.
Okay, that's Roger and Larry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. When you finish writing, do we have NEPR manifests? Okay, NEPR manifest, mailing refund and abutters notices, a total of $48.80.
Move to pay?
Second.
Is that you, Mike? Oh, that was Larry, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, good.
Thank you. Roger and Larry, unanimous. Thank you. That's the only manifest we have. Correspondence? Do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. Trish, did you need to say anything more to us? Okay? Okay, all right.
Wow, no life.
We're finished. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
That motion, oh,
Second?
second.
Thank you.